Hello, my name is Bria Phillips. The theory that I will be presenting on today is the mere exposure theory from Module 13. Robert B. Zonjac's mere exposure theory states that through exposure to a neutral stimulus, an individual comes to evaluate the stimulus more favorably over time. This theory was tested by Zonjac in 1968. In order to test this theory, Zonjac asked a few college students to repeat 5 different imaginary words a certain amount of times. The test found that the students found the words that they had repeated the most to become more favorable, even though all of the words that were repeated were made up. This was merely due to exposure. They had more exposure to some words than others, and therefore were more favorable towards the ones they had repeated the most. Mere exposure is most effective for neutral products and issues, does not work if someone already has a negative view toward a product, and only works up to a certain point. If you try to expose someone too much to something, they will start to have a negative feeling towards it. This theory reminds me of a story from my childhood when I lived in Japan. When I was growing up, my dad was in the Air Force, which meant we moved around a lot. And when I was in the 2nd grade, we moved to Japan, and I was extremely against it. I don't remember why I hated moving across the world so bad. I just remember that I did. Because of this, I was extremely against anything that had to do with learning anything about the Japanese culture or the Japanese language. And the fact that I lived on base made it really easy for me to do that. But after years of being exposed to living in Japan and living in the culture, I grew to love it. In fact, when I was in the 4th grade, I joined JPI, which stands for Japanese Partial Immersion. And that meant I would go to class every day, and just like all the other students, I would learn all my regular studies, like math and science, etc. But for the rest of the day, I would learn Japanese, which was really cool, and I really enjoyed it. I learned how to speak Japanese and write Japanese, and I even learned a bit about the Japanese culture, including how to play the sanshin, which is a Japanese guitar. Now that I have discussed the experience, I will make some inferences. So this experience really taught me the value of the mere exposure theory discussed in the textbook. It really played out the idea that when you're exposed to something over time in a positive light, you'll become to be more favorable of it. If I had never been exposed to living in a foreign country, I would still probably be very opposed to the idea. But because I was exposed to it over time in a positive light, I came to really love it and still long to live in a country different than my own again. And that's actually the reason why I did a study abroad last semester. Now that I've made some inferences, I will discuss how these inferences can be transferred to other situations in the future. So the mere exposure theory can be used to make a customer more comfortable with a new product or a new company. For example, if a new coffee shop is built, customers may be wary to go to it because they may be used to their regular coffee joint. They're like, no, I don't want to go to that one. I'll just stick with my own. But after being exposed to that new coffee shop over time, maybe they drive by it every day on their way to work, or they hear about their friends talking about it or their coworkers talking about it all the time. They see it in the office and their friends bring it in. They may become more favorable of that coffee shop over time and then finally go and test it out on their own. So, in conclusion, after reviewing the experience I had in Japan, I realized that mere exposure theory really is effective and can be employed in a myriad of situations, just like the coffee shop or other situations that you want people to really start liking a product or an idea. Now that I truly understand the importance of mere exposure, I will definitely use this theory in future interactions. It is a good way to make a customer, an employee, or even a friend get on board with a new idea or new way of thinking.